How to sell more cars.
With tonight's event, how to sell more cars using radio advertising, I created an event on Facebook and I created an event on LinkedIn. Identical event with the same description, inviting people to join. I invite on each platform, I invited like 1,000 people to join. LinkedIn let me invite 1,000 people in. Facebook let me invite 500 people in. So I did that. I'm actually both out. I hit 500 invites for Facebook and 1,000 invites for LinkedIn. I got about a dozen people on Facebook to say they were interested in it and do something. I got about 130 on LinkedIn say they were going to come in. They were going to come and do something. And the ones on LinkedIn, they're the general managers of car dealerships. They're radio advertising executives like Liz, and I can be much more targeted with it. So I'm using LinkedIn a lot more now than I'm using Facebook just for that. And so many people, Facebook, I mean, it's always been political. I'm worried about it starting to get ramped up when the new politics is about to start getting going. So I worry it gets ramped up again. And when it starts ramping that up, I just start hiding everybody. And pretty soon I ain't got nobody left to talk to on Facebook. So I just go do something else.
Well, you don't have to worry about that about me. I will say, I'll share. I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk, you listen to him.
Yeah.
Got that book, jab, jab, left hook. And he says, I need to write a new one, jab, jab, right hook, because that book is old.
Yeah.
And he was big on Twitter on that book. I mean, good Lord, look what happened there. But I'm in agreement with you about LinkedIn. And Gary Vaynerchuk will preach to you about that. He'll tell you that LinkedIn is the new Facebook.
Yeah.
He's more LinkedIn, TikTok, and I'm sorry, I still got that nagging cough. That LinkedIn is where you need to be at, and put your content in there. So I agree.
Yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I use LinkedIn a lot more. I haven't really got into the TikTok. I'm way too old to be on TikTok. I don't even have a tattoo, much less so I don't get the TikTok thing. And the thing I don't like about TikTok is the same thing I didn't like about Instagram, and that is that it's not as much about the two-way communication. It's more like Twitter. It's like broadcasting. I'm gonna create this thing and I'm gonna put it out there, just like radio broadcasting that we're going to be talking about tonight. Whereas what I wanted to use social media for, what I've always wanted to use it for, is to create that engagement where we're going back and forth and having a conversation. So 7:04, we got 4 of us in here. I'm going to go ahead and get us started. I'm going to share my screen because I had something I wanted to show you folks. Welcome everybody to the How to Sell More Cars podcast, town hall. Well, I don't know what you want to call it. We got a lot of stuff going on. We're going to be talking about radio advertising today, how to sell more cars with radio advertising. I'm your host, Terry Lancaster, and I'm kind of a big deal. Well, I'm actually not. I'm actually the least kind of big deal. I'm the littlest deal that you can imagine. But I did. Once upon a time, I stood on the NADA stage, the National Automobile Dealers Association of America, stood on their main stage at their main convention in San Francisco. This was 7 years ago. And you can see the picture for those of you watching this on video. You can see the picture. I'm throwing $100,000 up in the air. Now it's 100,000 Terry bucks. It wasn't real money. I went to Kinko's and had these printed up, and you had to get them printed a little larger, so otherwise they'll think you're trying to counterfeit money. So I went and had them printed up so I could throw them up in the air on stage. $100,000, because at the time in 2017, 5-6 years ago, 6-7 years ago now. That's how much the average car dealer spent on traditional advertising, on radio, TV, newspaper, and direct mail. $100,000. And the speech I was giving that year at NADA was the death of traditional media has been exaggerated. And I was there talking about radio and television and newspaper and direct mail, and how there was still a place for those in the advertising landscape. So here we are in 2023, 7 years later, and the question is that still true? Is the death of traditional media been greatly exaggerated, or is it exactly what has happened over the last few years? So I want to talk about that. That's the reason I had folks that I wanted to talk about that, and I've been having this conversation for the last week, because I'm writing an article now for the independent automotive dealers, the NIADA. I'm writing an article of them about using stores using radio advertising in this environment. So I've been talking for the last couple of weeks to my dealer friends around the U.S. and Canada about what's going on at your store. How's business? What's going on? You selling in cars? How you getting into cars? You got any inventory? Can you sell cars? And asking how they're using radio and if they're using radio. So I've gotten some really good responses from what I've talked to around the country, and just in the last week. I want to share that with you, and I want to share some information with you that I looked up. I've been doing this since the dawn of mankind. We're on here with the old guy, so he understands. This ain't my first rodeo, and so I've been tracking automotive advertising since about 1995. I pulled up some data. This is NADA data that you can watch on video. Advertising expenditures by medium in 2002 and 2012. This was the oldest graph I could find. I've got a collection of those, but they're actually, the older ones are on an old computer. But in 2002, dealers were spending like 47% of their advertising budget in the newspaper and about 15% in radio. Jump forward to 2012 right there. The newspaper budget's already been cut by a third. That's when Google just roared through the industry. 2002 to 2012 took over all that money, all the digital. You can see where you can just see the growth of digital there. They're looking at look at the size of that big pink chunk there, how much that grew in that time. But radio still stayed pretty steady through there, about 15%. And then I just looked at the one from last year. The most recent information that we have is from 2021. They haven't released the new full set of data from 22 yet, but here's the advertising expenses for 2021 by car dealers. The internet now up to 63%, so still just rip roaring through, and radio is now starting to take a hit. It held steady for the first 10 years of the digital onslaught. But the last 7 or 8 years, it's dropped by about a third. In fact, if you look down on here, the average car dealer these days is spending $48,000 per year. Average dealer, $48,000 per year on radio advertising. Go back to 2002, they were spending average dealer again about $65,000 on radio advertising, and meanwhile they're still spending $600-700 per unit. So the advertising budget's staying steady, but the percent going to radio is decreasing. So I want to talk about why that is, and how dealers are doing what they're doing to make the best use of radio today. So we got a handful of folks in here. If anybody wants to chip in at any time, turn your microphone on and pop in. Don't be bashful. Bashful salespeople have skinny children. So we're just going to we're just chatting here. I'm going to keep you on at 7:09. Keep you on for about another 20 minutes. I'd like everybody to be gone at 7:30 because I got dinner cooking and I don't like to miss a meal. So we're going to get down there. But I put together five things that I think that are important to know about radio in 2023 and ways that dealers can use this, and salespeople too. Because Mark Easter and I were just talking about social media, and the last line there: use every tool in the shed. We'll start there. Use every tool in the shed with radio advertising. That was one thing I talked about when I was at NADA. Those years ago, and I gave that talk about traditional advertising, that dealers can't rely on one thing. You can't rely on Google to send you all your business. You can't rely on Facebook to send you all their business, because at any moment the rug can get yanked completely out from you. If you were doing all of your advertising in newspaper in 2002, then that's gone. That is an ineffective medium anymore. It's not working for you anymore. So I've always been a believer in an omni-channel approach. You have to spread the wealth around. You have to be everywhere that you can, and you have to use every tool in the shed to get the job done, so that it doesn't get yanked out from you. And even spreading it out, you have to use every station. You have to be everywhere at once. And that's the complicated thing about automotive marketing is that you do have to eventually make those choices. And we'll go through. I'll look back at I got a Kia dealer. I'm going to go. Let's see. I turn this off. Stop the share so we can see each other's pretty face. I got a Kia dealer in South Carolina that I was talking to. And they had to make the decisions. He said he asked him how he's doing. He said, well, we've pared our radio back from maybe 8 stations deep to now we're running about 5 stations, and we've cut all those budgets. But as that's happened, we've also picked into some new advertising media that we're using that audio, OTT and streaming, Pandora, and online stuff that he mentioned. But there's also podcasting. I know we're recording a podcast here, and I don't sell advertising on this podcast, but I know a bunch of people who do sell advertising on their podcast, and it can be an effective medium if you use some of the tricks that we're going to talk about in just a little bit. So my buddy in South Carolina, he says they've been using radio, but they cut it back. And since COVID, they haven't advertised price. They've been doing mostly branding to stay relevant, which is one of the other points that I was talking about in there. Using every tool in the shed. One of the things that I've always advertised, or I've always talked about on radio advertising, is asking for the order. So you ask for the order. That's the call to action. And you basically got 2 kinds of advertising. There's always been the branding advertising, where you're trying to paint an image in people's minds. You're trying to plant a seed for some future growth. You're trying to just give them the warm and fuzzies. And I love the warm and fuzzies. You got to have the warm and fuzzies. But here we go. We got people coming in now. But at some point you need to ask for the order. But several of the people I talked to this week about radio advertising specifically went out of their way to mention that they're not doing price item advertising in their radio ad. They're not putting specific vehicle at a specific price. They're not doing any price point. Everything they're doing is about branding. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's the way to go. I think you got to have both. You got to use every tool in the shed. So Liz, if you want to pop in, feel free, or send me a message up there. If that's what you're seeing from your dealers, less emphasis on price point advertising. But there can be less emphasis on price point advertising, because that is true with digital coming in, and with everyone going to their phone. If just like serving the role of the newspaper from the old days, in the old days, they would go look at the newspaper if they were looking for prices. Now they go to the internet if they're looking for prices. So the price point can't be searched online, which defeats the whole purpose of putting the price in there, except for the one thing that a good low price can do, which is to alert people to the fact that, hey, maybe I can't afford that. And because dealers have this image that they're trying to hide something, I like dealers to put a little bit of pricing in the ads, just so that, just so you can say, there's the price. We're above board. We're honest. Here's the price. Pay what you do. But you can have a call to action without including a price. You can have a call to action to have people come by for a service appointment. You can have a call to action for people to come by to spin a wheel, win a prize. You can have a call to action for people to visit your website. You can have a call to action for a million different things that don't include buying a car. One of the big things right now, it's March 8th. We're just kind of wrapping up the tax season, and that's been huge for me in the radio business, because so much of that it is geared toward a little bit of subprime stuff, and everybody's got the tax check in their hand. Hitting them on the radio is a good time, but they're not necessarily worried about the price. They're worried about getting financed. They're worried about getting approved. So the call to action for a lot of those is, hey, we can get you approved. Come on by, give us a try. You make them some kind of emphasis about applying for a loan. We'll get you financed, and making that the call to action. So there can be a call to action that doesn't just say, buy this F-150 for $39,999, or save $10,000 on this Dodge Ram, or whatever that is. The call to action is the thing that you want the person to do. And with the dealerships, the beauty part is you got a million things that you could want them to do.
And I think,
Liz?
Sorry.
Yeah.
I also think that it's very important to broadcast the fact that you do have inventory, because a lot of there's with the COVID and all that, a lot of the clients and the consumers out there, they know that that the inventory issue is a problem, and and that the APRs are really high. So you have to make it more so of a journey experience. On my end, it's been working great, where the client has a journey. Either you're having some type of event at the dealership, and you have that client go there and see the inventory. So like that, they say, oh, okay, you have inventory, because of the whole problem that we didn't have inventory. So that is a big plus.
Yeah, and that's another call to action, and that's been a huge call to action for most of my clients for the last year. Is they've actually transferred 180 degrees from selling cars on the radio to buying cars on the radio. We're going to come in, we'll buy your car off the street, and they're generating huge profits in their pre-owned department, because they can get those buyers and they don't have to buy, then get those cars before the auction takes their piece of the pie. Liz mentioned events. That was one of the bullet points I had. You have to go big or go home. And that's been the key to radio advertising since the dawn of time. Mark's an old disc jockey, I know. And the radio is a frequency medium. It has been. You need to go in and yes, if you're going to run one spot a week on the local morning show, that's great. That's the good home cooking that I talked about on screen. I'll come back to that in a second. But the intention, the key for radio is frequency. It's getting in there. It's hammering the bullet points, hammering the message that you have, because radio, it reaches 100% of the population. You're not just reaching the low-hanging fruit that maybe you reach with digital media, but it reaches everyone, but it may not reach them at exactly the right time. So you need to plant that seed. This is where the branding goes hand in hand with asking for the order. You got to create the branding through repetition, through using a regular distinctive voice, through a regular tagline that you're going to use, anything that you're going to do that can become kind of this little earworm. A jingle is a beautiful thing for that, that creates this idea of you and your dealership in the people's heads, so that when it does time come for them to buy a car, they think about you and your dealership. So using frequency, I was talking to a dealer in Arkansas this week. And what they're doing it this month. And actually, this is one thing I've noticed, is that everything event and sales oriented has kind of gotten ramped up in the last few months as the business has kind of returned to normalcy a little bit, maybe. And they're having this giant sale. They're having a giant sale, and they went through and they bought basically everything. They bought the radio stations that they were on. They bought every time slot they could buy in. They bought every remote that they had, and they are going to dominate the airwaves. They're going to dominate the airwaves that entire week, and they're doing it through their spot advertising, and they're doing it through the remotes where they're having people come in. And that's the guy in South Carolina was saying the same thing. We had the remotes in, and that is the thing that radio has always done best. Is, in addition to always being there, radio is a constant companion. And I've always talked about it as the original social media. Now I'm an old disc jockey. And I know when you're sitting there at 11 o'clock at night on Thursday night, all the people are calling you just because they got somebody to talk to. The disc jockey is like a bartender with records. They're spinning the music, but they're there talking in people's ears, being their friend, being a companion, and make more friends, sell more cars. That's all I've ever preached about. And you can make a lot of friends on radio, because radio is in the friend business. When I was in radio, I told one of my buddies that you need to keep everything on the air so local that if there's a truck driver driving down the interstate, he's not going to know what you're talking about because he ain't from around here. You need to talk to the local people, and you need to be hand in hand. And I over and over and over again this week, I heard back from dealers that they're using radio, that they get the local disc jockey to endorse their product. That they're using the local promotional teams to come in and promote their events, and they're having remotes. That they're using their piggybacking on the social media that the radio stations are provide to reach out into the markets and be there. And that's what radio stations have been doing. They've been doing the social thing for a long time. They've been hooking up, and they've been handing out bumper stickers. Man, I put so many bumper stickers on the back of the car you can't imagine. But you make more friends you're going to sell more cars. And that's and that's, you get the if you're in a town and you've got a disc jockey who's been there forever, and he does the local morning show and everybody loves him, and you got him talking about your dealership at the start of every show, and then once a month you have him come down to the dealership and sign autographs and hand out hot dogs and spin the prize wheels and shoot the t-shirt cannons or whatever you want to do. It's good home cooking, and people like that, and you can still, that's where radio is going to stand out, where a lot of other media don't have that personality element. It's influencer marketing is 100% all it is. It's, instead of getting the TikTok superstar to talk about whatever you're selling, you get your local disc jockey who is probably a micro local.
They're celebrities.
Yeah, they're celebrities in your town. Mm-hmm. They are the TikTok influence of your market. So when I've talked about social media, I talk about you don't have to necessarily have a bazillion friends and everyone jumps on and they want to start creating videos and get all these likes and create this thing. But that's not how you sell more cars using social media. You sell more cars by building the relationships and becoming those friends. So you don't need 1 million followers to be Kim Kardashian or Kanye West or any of those people. If you're Bubba the Love Bug from Rock 107 in Topeka, then you got plenty of friends, and you can send your friends out to visit your friends. I got a couple more things that I want to talk about before I go, but let's see what. And it doesn't have to be about radio. You guys want to hop in and say anything about anything at all? Let's open it up for a minute before we start to try to wrap it up.
Well, you covered a whole mouthful there, Terry.
I got a big mouth and I like to run it, brother. So
yeah, well, we'll do that up over our next barbecue visit. But no, I think you pretty well nailed a lot of it. I mean, a lot of it is just taking that personality and just engaging with it, because there's a lot of places that are just stale. It's not just like, hey, so and so bought a car from me or whatever. And it's just the customer in our car. It really just blows my mind how many places just leave their, the staff just aren't even in the picture. There's nothing there. It's just all about the customer in the car.
Yeah. And that's funny. One of the things I've always said, that the most effective thing you can do for your advertising, whether it's on the internet or whether it's radio advertising or TV advertising or smoke signals or whatever else you're using, one of the most efficient ways to increase the productivity of that advertising is to let your staff know what's going on. If you're advertising this giant once in a lifetime mega sale, and the customer hears all these ads about it, and they read about it and they see it online, and then they talk to their buddy who works at the dealership and he don't have the faintest clue what they're talking about, then everything you spent telling that customer that story is gone, because you didn't tell your people the exact same story. And that's one of the things about radio is it reaches everyone. One of the last bullet point that I have that I can get to was you have to stand out to get noticed, and that's one of the things that's how I've made a living for the last 30 years, is producing radio ads that stand out and get noticed. And you use that by having a different voice and a consistent voice that's not like everybody else in the market. But also you stand out. I kind of completely lost my train of thought there. But when you stand out like that, your salespeople are going to notice that. People will walk into the dealership and quote your radio ad to your salespeople. And if your salespeople know your tagline, the same way everybody in town knows your tagline, and the same way, the guy at the grocery store knows your ad tagline, you're all what's up in each other, or get a great deal at Boot Hill Ford, or whatever your tagline is. And if people know it because they've heard it on the radio a million times, and your salespeople know it because they've heard it on the radio a million times, it becomes this bonding thing that people talk about. But you have to keep everybody in the picture and let them know what's going on, whether it's on radio or what else.
Terry.
Yeah, buddy. Clinton.
Hey, man, I was gonna say, not only keep your staff abreast of what you're advertising, but also it's very it can be very helpful, especially if you have staff with great personality, to include them in the advertising.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. Now, I mean, owners especially, and I've always had dealers who want to get involved in the advertising, and I love that. But and especially in today's social media, if you've got anybody with any personality at all, if you can get your local superstar hooked in with the local radio superstar, where you've got the guy like Mark Easter who's cutting up and telling jokes and knows everybody and got them all in there. You can get him on the radio with Joe Bob and whoever else is on there, and you get them. And when they come down for the remote, they're going back and forth. I was talking to a friend of mine in Arkansas who was talking about this big sale that they've got coming up. And they said that they bought all the advertising. But one of the things they specifically mentioned was, especially if you have if you have a Spanish language, if you do a lot of business with Spanish speaking customers, don't forget the Spanish language radio, but make sure you tie that in with your salespeople who speak Spanish. Have the remote with the Spanish language station and make sure your Spanish people are there at the remote interacting and engaging and getting some of that good home cooking. So if you've got, then they can interview them on the radio. They can do their own podcast, but whatever little community it is. And I've got a buddy just down the road who's done exactly that. He's created this massive buying community. Never sold cars before. He's making $250,000 a year. Selling cars in small town Tennessee because he completely dominates the Spanish speaking market. But whatever the market is, whether it's people who like trucks, Jeep people, anything that you can start building the community of. But anybody with personality and just like me, most of your salespeople or a lot of your salespeople probably going to run their mouth. If you can find somebody who can run their mouth and put them in front of a camera, put a microphone in front of their face, let them do what they do, you probably get a little bit, sometimes bad things happen, but more often than not, good things come from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%. And the other caveat is that occasionally, once in a blue moon, you're going to find a customer that's going to go and be that live personality that they had just such a good time that makes for a good interview once in a while.
Yeah.
And then you're hearing it from the horse's mouth.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, that's the great thing about radio. It is one of the biggest. I guess when I sold radio advertising, the biggest thing I hated to hear was I walk in the dealership and they want to say, well, my best advertising is word of mouth. Well, baby, I don't know what you think radio is. Radio is word of mouth. And if you can get it from Mark Easter's mouth, or you can get it from the DJ's mouth, or you can get it from a customer's mouth, if you've got the customer who can carry that out. And I think that's the good thing is you need a great producer to do this. I've always had dealers who want to be the face of the personality, and that is a huge, unique selling proposition. If you have a dealer or even a salespeople or someone at the dealership who can be the face of the store. Now, more often than not, you don't have someone who can carry that load of charisma, but you can make anybody carry about 3 seconds worth. If you got the tagline, and you can, if you got a great tagline, you can stick it in your most bashful customer's face, get them to sing that tagline, get them to sing the jingle, get them involved. They don't have to write War and Peace. They don't have to do your whole 30-second ad. But whether it's a salesperson or a customer or an owner or a manager, if you can just get them on there where it just seems more local, more good home cooking, that's where radio shines. 7:30 on the dot.
Another note, talking about the Spanish, I know that at least on my end in Florida, in Miami, Florida.
Yeah.
So the Spanish station here is syndicated across different stations in different states in the country. And once you get that loyal customer in the Hispanic market, they're loyal to the dealership. They will bring their entire family and buy a vehicle from you.
Yeah, and in any community that you can get, if you start getting into the community, and especially a tight-knit community where they got friends and friends want to buy from friends, and they tell two friends and they tell two friends, and so on and so on and so on. That's why I call radio the original social media. It's about creating that bond and spreading that word. I'm gonna run through the 5 bullet points I had for radio today. The good home cooking, and make sure you're using the tools, make sure you're using the local personality, that local element. I talked to a used car dealer in Nebraska. Said, I haven't been on a radio in years. I don't ever put anything price on. The only thing I do is I sponsor the halftime show of every local sporting event they will take my money for. And again, because it's local, then you can have them talking about it. You can have them come down to the dealership and do their podcast about the local football team. And there ain't nothing bigger in Tennessee than high school football. And that's like that most everywhere that I know about. Radio is get good home cooking. Go big or go home. If you're going to be there, dominate. Don't pee in the water. You can't warm up the ocean that way. The only way you can do it is jump in, go all in. I'm still a believer in ask for the order. You have to have a call to action, but the action doesn't have to be a price. It doesn't even have to be about car. It can be about service. It can be about selling a car. It can be about getting finance. It can be a lot of things. You don't have to clutter up your ad with all the prices in the world that the manufacturers sit down there because they're the same prices that everyone else is advertising. Just get a price in there that lets people know maybe they can afford the car. You have to stand out to get noticed, do something a little bit different. Different gets noticed 8 days a week. Different is how you get noticed. So do something different than everybody else in town. Do it louder, do it prouder, and use every tool in the shed, especially when it comes to radio, because radio's got so many tools. If you want to tie yourself into the social that they're doing, the activities, the promotions and charities that they're doing around the community, make sure you get in there and even the radio spots that I do now, we do a radio spot and it goes on the radio, but then I produce a video graphic that goes with it that they can share, that they can turn around and share on social media and put up on YouTube and continue and use all these tools, because the world is too big and too fragmented to really target everything. If you target yourself to death, which is what a lot of digital advertising is, you're going all in on the 2% of the market who's in the market. If you target yourself to death, the 98% are eventually going to forget about you, and it's going to boil down to who can do it quicker, easier, faster, cheaper. If you use every tool in the shed, you can reach everybody all the time. And that's what I got. 7:33. I appreciate everyone popping in to talk about how to sell more cars with radio advertising on a nice Wednesday evening. Last words, anyone, before we go?
Thank you, Terry, and thanks for involving me again, sir.
Clinton, it's a pleasure, baby. Anytime you want to hop in, I'm glad to have you.
Yeah, same for me. Thanks for the invite, Terry.
You, buddy. Thanks, Will. Thanks, Mark, Toria, Liz. Thank y'all, everyone. Have a great day, and go sell something. Talk to you soon.
Where am I? No.
Gotta go.